In a quiet little neighborhood in Chicago, there was a small jiu-jitsu gym that buzzed with energy every evening. The walls were covered in faded posters of famous martial artists, and the faint smell of sweat mixed with the sound of people grunting and laughing as they trained. It wasn't just a gym. It was a place where people came to push their limits, find community, and learn something new. One chilly Tuesday night, the door creaked open, and everyone turned to see who had walked in. A woman stepped inside, looking around curiously. She was petite, with curly hair pulled back into a ponytail and wearing gear that looked like it had been bought online without much thought. Her shorts didn't quite match her rash guard. Some of the students exchanged quick glances, trying to figure out if she belonged there or had accidentally wandered into the wrong building. Her name was Maya, and she introduced herself quietly when the coach asked. She explained that she had never done jiu-jitsu before but wanted to try something different. When she said this, the head coach, a tall, broad-shouldered man known for his tough teaching style, raised an eyebrow. He introduced himself as Coach Malone, though most people called him Iron Fist behind his back because of how strict he could be. Coach Malone wasn't exactly warm when meeting newcomers, especially ones who didn't seem prepared for what jiu-jitsu demanded. To him, Maya looked like someone who might struggle even tying her belt properly. Without thinking too much about it, he cracked a joke loud enough for everyone to hear. "Well, hope you're ready for this. It's not yoga." A few students chuckled nervously, while others shifted uncomfortably. They weren't sure whether to laugh or stay silent. Maya didn't react the way many would have expected. Instead of looking embarrassed or defensive, she gave a small smile and nodded politely. "We'll see," she said calmly, her voice steady. Those two words hung in the air longer than anyone realized at the time. They carried a quiet confidence that made some of the students wonder if maybe they'd underestimated her. As the class began, Coach Malone went over some basic moves, explaining them step by step. Most beginners struggled to follow along, but Maya paid close attention, absorbing everything like a sponge. While other students hesitated or fumbled through the techniques, she moved deliberately, focusing on getting each detail right. Even though she wasn't perfect, there was something about the way she carried herself that stood out. She wasn't flashy or trying to show off. She was just determined. During breaks, some of the more experienced students tried to strike up conversations with her, curious about why she had decided to join. Maya explained that she worked long hours as a marketing executive and felt like she needed a challenge outside of work. She admitted that she didn't know much about jiu-jitsu yet, but she liked the idea of testing herself physically and mentally. Her honesty won people over, and soon a few of them started offering tips or cheering her on during drills. But no matter how hard Maya tried, Coach Malone still seemed skeptical. Every now and then, he'd make comments that felt less like jokes and more like digs. Once, after she stumbled during a drill, he said, "Don't worry, we won't push you too hard." Another time, when she asked a question about technique, he replied, "Maybe stick to cardio if this gets tough." These remarks weren't mean-spirited exactly, but they weren't encouraging either. They carried a tone that suggested he doubted she'd last long in the gym. Despite all this, Maya kept showing up. Day after day, she came to class, putting in effort even when things got difficult. What Coach Malone and almost everyone else didn't know was that Maya had been preparing for this moment for months. Before stepping foot in the gym, she had hired a private instructor to teach her the basics of jiu-jitsu. She practiced at home, studying videos of matches and drilling techniques until she felt confident enough to join a group class. All of this preparation meant that while she may have looked inexperienced, she actually knew more than she let on. Still, Coach Malone remained unaware of her secret training. To him, she was just another beginner struggling to keep up. And so, one evening during a sparring session, he decided to pair her with one of the toughest intermediate fighters in the room. Everyone watched closely, waiting to see what would happen next. No one, not even Maya, realized that within minutes the entire gym would be left speechless. As the days turned into weeks, Maya became a regular face at the gym. She showed up every evening, always dressed in her mismatched gear, ready to learn and improve. At first, some of the students thought she might lose interest after a few tough sessions, but Maya kept surprising them. She didn't just show up. She gave it her all. Whether it was practicing basic movements or learning complicated submissions, she approached everything with focus and determination. Coach Malone, however, still hadn't warmed up to her. He seemed stuck in his initial impression of her as someone who wouldn't last long in the demanding world of jiu-jitsu. Every now and then, he'd throw out comments that felt more dismissive than helpful. One day, during warm-ups, he said something about how some people might find this too intense. Everyone knew exactly who he was talking about. Another time, when Maya asked for clarification on a technique, he replied with a smirk, "Maybe you should stick to watching videos if this is too much." The thing was, these remarks didn't bother Maya as much as they bothered the other students. They could see how hard she worked and how much she cared about improving. Some of them started rooting for her quietly, hoping she'd prove Coach Malone wrong. Others admired her patience because, despite his snide comments, Maya never complained or argued back. She simply nodded, smiled, and kept going. One evening, during a session focused on sparring, Coach Malone made an announcement that caught everyone's attention. "All right, let's mix things up tonight," he said, clapping his hands together. "We're pairing beginners with intermediates to test their skills." The room buzzed with excitement and a little nervousness as people wondered who they'd be matched with. When Coach Malone called out Maya's name, the atmosphere shifted slightly. Everyone leaned forward, curious to see what would happen next. "Maya, you're with Jake," Coach Malone said, pointing to one of the most skilled intermediate fighters in the gym. Jake was known for his speed, strength, and technical precision. He wasn't cocky, but he was confident, and rightly so. He had earned his reputation through countless hours of practice and plenty of victories on the mats. The moment Coach Malone announced the pairing, a ripple of whispers spread through the room. Jake glanced at Maya, raising an eyebrow. Like many others, he assumed this would be an easy win. After all, she was a beginner, and he was far more experienced. Still, he walked over to her with respect, offering a polite nod before taking his position. "Ready?" he asked, giving her a reassuring smile. Maya nodded back, her expression calm but alert. She didn't say anything, but there was something in her eyes, a quiet intensity that made Jake hesitate for half a second. Most people missed it, but Coach Malone noticed. Standing off to the side, arms crossed, he couldn't help but feel a flicker of curiosity. For the first time, he wondered if maybe, just maybe, he had misjudged her. "Go ahead whenever you're ready," Coach Malone said, his tone casual but tinged with anticipation. He leaned back against the wall, sipping from his water bottle, clearly expecting the match to end quickly. Around him, the other students formed a loose circle, watching intently. Some looked sympathetic toward Maya, while others exchanged knowing looks, assuming Jake would dominate within seconds. When the signal was given to start, Jake moved immediately, lunging forward with controlled aggression. His plan was simple: take her down fast and assert control early. But instead of panicking or freezing under pressure, Maya reacted with surprising speed and precision. In one fluid motion, she sidestepped his attack, using his momentum against him. Before anyone could fully process what was happening, she executed a perfect hip throw, sending Jake crashing to the mat. The room fell silent. It wasn't just the fact that she had thrown him. It was how effortlessly she did it. 14 seconds. That's all it took. Jake lay there for a brief moment, stunned, before scrambling to recover. By then, Maya was already transitioning into a dominant position, locking him into a tight armbar. There was no hesitation, no fumbling. Her movements were smooth and deliberate, like she'd practiced this exact sequence hundreds of times. Jake tapped out almost instantly, raising his hand to signal surrender. The sound of his tap echoed loudly in the suddenly quiet gym. Maya released the hold immediately, leaning back and offering him a hand to help him up. "Good roll," she said simply, her voice steady and calm. Jake accepted her hand, pulling himself to his feet. He looked at her, still processing what had just happened. "Wow," he muttered, shaking his head. "That was impressive." Then turning to the group, he added with a laugh, Guess I shouldn't have underestimated you. The tension in the room broke as everyone erupted into applause. People clapped and cheered, clearly amazed by what they had witnessed. Some of the students exchanged wide-eyed glances, whispering excitedly about how unexpected the outcome had been. Even Jake joined in, grinning as he patted Maya on the shoulder. "You've got serious skill," he told her sincerely. "Where did you learn that?" Maya shrugged modestly, deflecting the praise. "Just trying my best," she said with a small smile. But even as she downplayed her performance, it was clear that something significant had just happened. The mood in the gym had shifted completely, from skepticism to admiration, from doubt to awe. Meanwhile, Coach Malone stood frozen, his water bottle halfway to his lips. He stared at Maya, his expression unreadable. For the first time, he realized that he had seriously underestimated her, not just as a fighter, but as a person. His earlier comments, meant to tease or challenge her, now felt hollow and misguided. As the applause continued, he slowly lowered his water bottle, his mind racing. What else didn't he know about this woman? And more importantly, how had she managed to surprise everyone so thoroughly? The rest of the class passed in a blur. People couldn't stop talking about what had happened, replaying the match in their heads and marveling at Maya's technique. By the time the session ended, Maya had become something of a legend in the gym, not because she sought attention, but because she had proven herself without saying a word. And as she left the building that night, tying her belt around her waist, she couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. She hadn't come here to make a statement, but sometimes actions speak louder than words. The buzz around the gym didn't die down anytime soon. That night, as people packed up their gear and headed out, conversations were alive with excitement. Everyone wanted to talk about what had just happened. How had Maya, a complete beginner, in everyone's eyes, managed to take down one of the toughest fighters in the room? It was like watching a plot twist in a movie no one saw coming. Jake, still shaking his head in disbelief, couldn't stop replaying the match in his mind. I wasn't going easy on her," he told a group of students gathered near the exit. "But she just flipped me, like it was nothing." He laughed, half amazed, half embarrassed. "Seriously, where did she learn that?" Others chimed in, sharing their theories. Some thought maybe Maya had been secretly training for years. Others joked that she might have superhuman strength or reflexes. But no matter how they tried to explain it, one thing was clear. Maya had earned their respect. Big time. Maya herself stayed quiet during all the chatter. She didn't join in the discussions or try to explain her background. Instead, she focused on packing her bag, keeping her head down. When someone congratulated her, she simply smiled and said thanks, brushing off the praise like it was no big deal. Inside, though, she felt a mix of emotions: pride, relief, and even a little amusement. She knew this moment would change things, but she wasn't sure how much. Coach Malone, on the other hand, couldn't shake off what he'd seen. After the class ended, he lingered in the gym, staring at the mat where the match had taken place. 14 seconds. That's all it took for Maya to turn everything upside down. He replayed the scene in his mind. The way she sidestepped Jake's attack, the precision of her hip throw, the calmness with which she transitioned into the armbar. It wasn't just skill. It was control, confidence, experience. For the first time, Coach Malone realized he had made a mistake, a big one. He had judged Maya based on appearances, from her mismatched gear to her quiet demeanor, and assumed she wouldn't amount to much. Now standing there alone in the empty gym, he felt a pang of guilt. His earlier comments, meant to challenge or provoke her, suddenly seemed unfair. Worse than that, they felt disrespectful. When Maya finally finished packing her things and turned to leave, Coach Malone called out to her, "Hey, can I talk to you for a minute?" His voice was softer than usual, almost hesitant. Maya stopped and turned around, surprised. She nodded, walking over to where he stood. "I just wanted to ask," he began, rubbing the back of his neck awkwardly. "Where did you learn to fight like that? I've been teaching Jiu-Jitsu for Years, and I've never seen anyone pull off something like that so cleanly. Maya hesitated for a moment before answering. She hadn't planned to reveal her secret training, but something about Coach Malone's tone made her decide to open up. I hired a private instructor a few months ago, she explained. Before I joined the gym, I wanted to make sure I could hold my own, so I practiced the basics at home, watched videos, drilled techniques. I figured if I came here prepared, I'd get more out of it. Coach Malone listened intently, his expression softening. "You've been training privately?" he asked, clearly stunned. "Why didn't you say anything?" Maya shrugged. "I didn't want special treatment. I wanted to earn my place here just like everyone else." Her answer hit him hard. Here was someone who had worked tirelessly behind the scenes, not to show off or gain attention, but because she genuinely cared about doing her best. And instead of recognizing her effort, he had mocked her. The realization weighed heavily on him. "Well," Coach Malone said after a long pause, "you definitely earned your place tonight." He gave her a small, genuine smile, one that didn't come easily to him. "I owe you an apology. I underestimated you, and that wasn't fair." Maya blinked, caught off guard by his words. She hadn't expected an apology, let alone one delivered so sincerely. "It's okay," she said softly. "We all make assumptions sometimes." Coach Malone nodded, looking relieved yet thoughtful. "Still, I'm sorry, you've got real talent, and I should have seen that sooner." He paused, then added, "If you're serious about sticking with this, I'll do everything I can to help you improve. You've got potential, more than you realize." Maya smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. "Thanks," she said. "I appreciate that." As she left the gym, Coach Malone watched her go, his mind racing. Something about Maya's humility and determination had struck a chord with him. Over the years, he had become known for his tough, no-nonsense approach to teaching. He pushed his students hard because he believed in discipline and perseverance. But now, standing there reflecting on the evening's events, he wondered if maybe he had been too harsh or worse, too dismissive. That night, as he locked up the gym and headed home, Coach Malone found himself thinking about Maya's journey. What drove someone like her to put in so much effort without seeking recognition? How many others had he overlooked because they didn't fit his idea of what a fighter should look like? These questions gnawed at him, planting seeds of doubt about his own methods. Over the next few days, subtle changes started to show in Coach Malone's behavior. During classes, he paid closer attention to each student, taking note of their strengths and weaknesses. He stopped making offhand remarks that could be interpreted as mocking or discouraging. Instead, he encouraged everyone to focus on their progress, reminding them that growth often comes from unexpected places. For Maya, life at the gym improved dramatically. The awkward tension between her and Coach Malone faded away, replaced by mutual respect. Other students began treating her differently too, not as a beginner anymore, but as someone to look up to. Some even started asking for tips or advice, eager to learn from her experience. One evening, during a particularly grueling session, Coach Malone pulled Maya aside after class. "Listen," he said, his tone serious but kind. "I've been thinking about what you said the other day, that you didn't want special treatment, and you're right. Everyone deserves a fair chance. But sometimes fairness means giving people the tools they need to succeed. You've already proven yourself, but I want to push you further. Are you ready for that?" Maya looked at him, sensing the sincerity in his voice. "Of course," she replied. "I'm here to learn." Coach Malone nodded, a hint of pride flickering in his eyes. "Good, because I think you're capable of more than you know. Let's see what you can really do." From that point on, Maya became a key part of the gym community. Her quiet confidence inspired others to push past their own doubts and fears. Even Coach Malone found himself growing alongside her, learning to adapt his teaching style to better support his students. Slowly but surely, the culture of the gym began to shift, for the better. And as Maya tied her belt tightly around her waist each evening, stepping onto the mat with renewed purpose, she reminded herself of why she had started this journey in the first place. It wasn't about proving anyone wrong or earning applause. It was about challenging herself, finding strength she didn't know she had, and inspiring others to do the same. The days that followed Maya's unforgettable match with Jake brought a noticeable change in the atmosphere of the gym. The initial shock and awe had settled into something deeper, a newfound respect for Maya, not just as a fighter but as a person. People began to see her differently. She wasn't just the quiet newcomer anymore. She was someone who inspired others to push harder and believe in themselves. Coach Malone, too, seemed like a different man. His sharp edges softened and his demeanor became more approachable. Gone were the sarcastic remarks or dismissive comments that used to pepper his instructions. Instead, he started focusing on encouragement, reminding students that progress came in all shapes and sizes. He even began incorporating stories of resilience into his teaching, subtly crediting Maya for showing him the importance of patience and humility. For Maya, this shift felt both surprising and rewarding. She hadn't walked into the gym expecting to change anyone's perspective, let alone Coach Malone's. But seeing how her actions had influenced those around her filled her with a sense of purpose. Every time someone approached her after class, to ask for advice or thank her for inspiring them, she felt a quiet pride. It wasn't about being the center of attention. It was about knowing she had made a difference, however small. One evening, during a particularly intense training session, Coach Malone gathered everyone at the center of the mat. "All right, listen up," he said, clapping his hands to get their attention. "We're going to do something a little different tonight." His eyes scanned the room before landing on Maya. "Maya, can you come here for a second?" Maya stepped forward, unsure what was coming next. The other students exchanged curious glances, wondering why she was being singled out. Coach Malone turned to face the group, his expression serious but warm. "I want to talk about effort and mindset," he began. "A lot of you have probably heard me say that Jiu-Jitsu isn't just about physical strength, it's about mental toughness, strategy, and heart. And if there's one person in this room who embodies that, it's Maya." He paused, letting his words sink in. Some students nodded knowingly while others smiled, clearly agreeing. Maya stood there feeling a mix of gratitude and slight embarrassment. She wasn't used to being put on the spot like this, especially by someone like Coach Malone. "When I first met Maya," he continued, "I'll admit, I underestimated her. I judged her based on appearances and assumptions, and I was wrong, dead wrong. Not only has she shown incredible skill on the mat, but she's also taught me and all of us an important lesson. Never judge a book by its cover." The room grew silent, the weight of his words hanging in the air. For a man known for his tough exterior and no-nonsense attitude, admitting a mistake like this was rare. It was clear that Maya's impact had reached far beyond her performance in sparring matches. "Maya's dedication reminds us that success doesn't happen overnight," Coach Malone went on. "It's built through hard work, persistence, and believing in yourself even when others doubt you. So tonight I want everyone to take a page from her book. Focus on your own journey, not what others think of you. Push past your limits, and don't be afraid to surprise yourself." When he finished speaking, the entire gym erupted into applause. Maya stood there, overwhelmed by the support and admiration radiating from her peers. She didn't know what to say, so she simply bowed, her head slightly mouthing a quiet thank you to Coach Malone. He gave her a nod, a silent acknowledgement that they were both learning and growing together. As weeks turned into months, Maya continued to train with the same determination that had brought her to the gym in the first place. Her skills improved rapidly under Coach Malone's guidance, and she quickly earned the trust and friendship of her fellow students. What started as a personal challenge had blossomed into something much bigger, a source of inspiration for everyone around her. One day, during a practice drill, Maya found herself paired with another intermediate fighter. This time, though, the energy in the room felt different. There was no tension, no underlying skepticism. Instead, there was excitement and anticipation. Everyone knew Maya could hold her own, and they were eager to see how far she'd come since that fateful night against Jake. The match unfolded with intensity, each participant pushing the other to their limits. Maya executed techniques with precision, transitioning smoothly between moves and anticipating her opponent's strategies. When the round ended, both fighters tapped fists, grinning at each other. "That was awesome," her partner said, breathing heavily. "You've gotten even better," Maya laughed, wiping sweat from her brow. "So have you," she replied. "Let's do it again sometime." Moments like these became routine for Maya. She wasn't just a student anymore. She was part of the fabric of the gym. Newcomers looked up to her, asking for tips or advice. Experienced fighters sought her out for challenging sparring sessions. Even Coach Malone relied on her input, often consulting her when introducing new drills or techniques. But perhaps the most significant change was within Maya herself. Over time, she realized that jiu-jitsu wasn't just about mastering moves or winning matches. It was about building connections, facing fears, and discovering inner strength. Each victory, no matter how small, reinforced her belief that she was capable of more than she ever imagined. One afternoon, after an especially tough session, Maya stayed behind to help Coach Malone clean up the mats. As they worked side by side, he broke the silence. "You know," he said, leaning on his mop, "you've changed this place. Not just for me, but for everyone." Maya stopped mid-motion, surprised by the comment. "Changed it how?" she asked, genuinely curious. "You showed us what it means to lead by example," he explained. "Your work ethic, your humility, your willingness to learn. It's contagious. People are bringing their best selves to the gym because of you." Maya shook her head, smiling softly. "I'm just doing my thing," she said. "If it helps anyone else along the way, that's great. But honestly, I'm still learning too." Coach Malone chuckled. "Well, keep learning then. Because whatever you're doing, it's working." By the time Maya celebrated 6 months at the gym, she had become a cornerstone of the community. Her presence transformed the culture of the space, making it more inclusive and supportive. Students who once felt intimidated or out of place now found confidence in their abilities, thanks in part to Maya's quiet leadership. Even outside the gym, Maya noticed changes in herself. She carried the lessons she learned on the mat into her daily life: perseverance, adaptability, and resilience. Challenges at work no longer seemed insurmountable, and setbacks felt less daunting. Jiu-Jitsu had given her tools she never knew she needed, and she was grateful for every moment of it. As she tied her belt tightly around her waist one evening, preparing for another session, Maya reflected on how far she'd come. She hadn't set out to inspire anyone or prove a point. She had simply wanted to grow, to test her limits and discover what she was truly capable of. And in doing so, she had touched lives in ways she never anticipated. The journey wasn't over yet, of course. There were still challenges ahead, still goals to chase. But Maya knew one thing for certain: wherever this path led, she would face it with the same courage and determination that had brought her this far. After all, sometimes the greatest victories aren't measured in seconds or points. They're measured in the hearts and minds you inspire along the way. As the weeks rolled on, Maya's journey at the gym continued to evolve. She was no longer just a student or even a role model. She had become a symbol of transformation for everyone around her. The once skeptical Coach Malone now treated her with genuine respect, often seeking her input on technique and strategy. His teaching style had shifted too. He'd grown more patient, more observant, and less quick to judge. It wasn't just Maya who noticed the change. It was evident in how he interacted with all his students. One evening, during a particularly grueling class, Coach Malone stopped mid-session to share something personal. "You know," he said, addressing the group, "I've been doing this for over 20 years. I thought I knew everything there was to know about jiu-jitsu. But life has a funny way of showing you that you don't." He glanced at Maya briefly before continuing. "Sometimes the people we least expect end up teaching us the biggest lessons." The room fell silent as everyone processed his words. For someone like Coach Malone, a man known for his tough exterior and rigid approach, to admit vulnerability was rare. And yet, here he was, openly acknowledging that Maya had changed not only his perspective, but also the culture of the gym itself. Maya sat quietly among the students, feeling both humbled and grateful. She hadn't set out to teach anyone anything. Her goal had always been simple: to grow stronger mentally and physically. But somewhere along the way, she realized that her presence had sparked a ripple effect. Other students began approaching. They're training differently. They pushed harder, stayed longer, and supported each other more openly. Even the newer members, who might have otherwise felt intimidated, found courage because of how welcoming the environment had become. Around this time, an unexpected challenge arose. A local martial arts tournament was announced, and many of the intermediate fighters at the gym decided to sign up. Sparring matches were scheduled, and while most participants were seasoned competitors, a few beginners expressed interest as well. One evening after practice, Coach Malone approached Maya with a suggestion. "I think you should consider entering the tournament," he said, his tone firm but encouraging. "You're ready for it?" Maya blinked, caught off guard by the idea. "Me? Compete?" she asked, shaking her head. "I don't know. I'm still learning. Plus, those tournaments are intense." Coach Malone crossed his arms, giving her a knowing look. "And you've handled intense situations before. Remember Jake? Remember what happened when you stepped onto the mat without hesitation? That's exactly why I think you can do this." Maya hesitated. Competing meant stepping into unfamiliar territory, not just physically but emotionally. Tournaments weren't like regular classes where mistakes could be brushed off as learning experiences. They were high-stakes environments where every move mattered and the pressure could feel overwhelming. Still, part of her wondered what it would be like to test herself in such a setting. Seeing her uncertainty, Coach Malone softened his tone. "Listen, I'm not saying you'll win. Nobody expects perfection. What matters is that you try. You've inspired so many people here, including me. Imagine what competing could do, not just for you but for others watching." His words struck a chord. Maya thought about the countless times she'd seen someone hesitate to take on a challenge only to regret it later. She didn't want to be one of those people. If anything, she wanted to show others that growth came from stepping outside your comfort zone, even if it scared you. "Okay," she said finally, nodding slowly. "I'll do it." Coach Malone smiled, clearly pleased. "Good. We'll start preparing right away." Training for the tournament became a team effort. While Maya focused on refining her techniques, Coach Malone worked closely with her, designing drills tailored to her strengths. Other students pitched in too, offering tips and volunteering to spar with her. There was a sense of camaraderie in the air, as though everyone was invested in her success. During one practice session, Maya found herself struggling with a particular submission hold. No matter how hard she tried, she couldn't seem to execute it smoothly. Frustration bubbled up inside her, and for a moment she considered giving up. Sensing her frustration, one of the senior students walked over and knelt beside her. "You're thinking too much," he said gently. "Trust your instincts. Let your body remember what it's learned." Maya took a deep breath, letting his advice sink in. She closed her eyes for a second, visualizing the movement in her mind. When she opened them again, she nodded. "Let's try it one more time." This time it clicked. As soon as she stopped overthinking and allowed muscle memory to take over, the hold flowed naturally. The entire gym erupted in cheers, clapping and shouting encouragement. Maya laughed, relief washing over her. In that moment, she realized something important. She wasn't alone in this journey. Everyone around her genuinely cared about her progress. As the day of the tournament drew closer, nerves began to creep in. Maya spent hours practicing, reviewing videos, and mentally preparing herself. Yet, despite her efforts, doubts lingered. What if she froze under pressure? What if she let everyone down? On the morning of the event, Maya arrived at the venue early, her stomach churning with anxiety. The gym was buzzing with energy, fighters warming up, coaches shouting instructions, spectators filling the bleachers. It was nothing like the quiet, intimate atmosphere of her usual training sessions. For a moment, she felt completely out of place. Coach Malone noticed her unease and pulled her aside. "Hey," he said, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Remember why you're here. You didn't come to prove anything to anyone but yourself. Just focus on doing your best. Everything else will fall into place." His words calmed her racing thoughts. Maya nodded, taking a deep breath. She reminded herself of all the hours she'd put in, all the challenges she'd overcome. This was just another step on her journey, one that would push her to grow even further. When her name was called for her first match, Maya stepped onto the mat with a mix of determination and calmness. Her opponent was taller, stronger, and visibly experienced. Some in the crowd whispered bets on who would win, but Maya tuned them out. All that mattered was the task at hand. The match started fast, with both fighters testing each other's defenses. At first, Maya struggled to find openings, her opponent's agility keeping her on edge. But then, midway through the round, something shifted. Maya spotted a gap, an opportunity to transition into a sweep. With precision and speed, she executed the move flawlessly, reversing their positions and gaining control. From there, she locked in a tight submission hold, forcing her opponent to tap out. The crowd erupted in applause, cheering loudly. Maya released the hold and stood up, breathing heavily but smiling. She had done it. Against all odds, she had won her first competitive match. Back at the gym later that week, the celebration was in full swing. Students gathered around Maya, congratulating her on her performance. Someone had even brought a cake with congratulations written in bold letters. Coach Malone raised a plastic cup filled with water, proposing a toast. "To Maya," he said, his voice filled with pride, "for showing us all what true grit looks like. Here's to breaking barriers, inspiring others, and proving that greatness comes in all forms." Everyone cheered, raising their cups in agreement. Maya looked around the room, overwhelmed by the love and support surrounding her. She realized then that this wasn't just about winning a match. It was about being part of something bigger than herself. Through her actions, she had helped create a community built on trust, encouragement, and mutual respect. As the night wound down and people began heading home, Maya stayed behind to help clean up. Coach Malone joined her, leaning against a wall as they talked quietly. "You know," he said, breaking the silence, "you've taught me more than just jiu-jitsu. You've reminded me why I started teaching in the first place, to help people grow, to see them succeed." Maya smiled, touched by his honesty. "We've all grown together," she replied. "That's what makes this place special." Coach Malone nodded, a thoughtful expression on his face. "Yeah, and I have a feeling this is just the beginning, for all of us." As Maya tied her belt tightly around her waist one last time that evening, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. The road ahead would undoubtedly have its ups and downs, but she was ready for whatever came next. After all, she had already proven that with perseverance, humility, and heart, anything was possible. Months passed, and Maya's life at the gym settled into a rhythm that felt both familiar and exhilarating. The tournament had been a turning point, not just for her but for everyone around her. Winning her first match gave her confidence a boost, but more importantly, it showed her that growth wasn't about perfection. It was about showing up, putting in the effort, and embracing challenges head-on. That lesson stayed with her long after the cheers of the crowd faded. At the gym, things continued to evolve. The culture Coach Malone had once described as tough and no nonsense now felt warm and inclusive. People greeted each other with genuine smiles, encouraged one another during drills, and celebrated small victories together. Even newcomers could sense the shift. They weren't met with judgment or skepticism anymore. Instead, they were welcomed with open arms, just like Maya had been. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and painted the sky orange, Coach Malone called everyone to gather near the center of the mat. He looked unusually serious, holding a small box under his arm. "All right, listen up," he said, his voice carrying across the room. Everyone stopped what they were doing and turned their attention toward him. "I've got something important to say," he began, glancing briefly at Maya before addressing the group. "Tonight isn't just another training session. It's a celebration." He paused, letting the words sink in. "A few months ago, I wouldn't have thought this possible, but thanks to someone here, we've become more than just a gym. We're a family." The students exchanged curious looks, whispering among themselves. Celebration? Family? What was going on? Coach Malone opened the box and pulled out a blue belt, the symbol of a student's progression from beginner to intermediate level in jiu-jitsu. "Maya," he said, turning to face her directly. "Come here." Maya froze, her heart skipping a beat. She hadn't expected this moment to come so soon. Sure, she'd worked hard, trained consistently, and pushed herself beyond her limits, but earning a blue belt still felt monumental. Slowly, she stepped forward, her legs trembling slightly, beneath her. The entire gym erupted into applause, cheering her name. As Coach Malone tied the blue belt around her waist, he spoke softly, so only she could hear. "You've earned this, not because you won a match or impressed anyone, but because you embody everything jiu-jitsu stands for: resilience, humility, and heart." Tears welled up in Maya's eyes, though she tried to blink them away. This wasn't just a piece of fabric wrapped around her waist. It was a testament to her journey, her struggles, and her triumphs. When Coach Malone finished tying the knot, he patted her shoulder gently. "Congratulations," he said, his voice thick with emotion. The rest of the class swarmed around her, hugging her, patting her back, and offering words of encouragement. "You deserve this," someone shouted. "Proud of you," another chimed in. For a moment, Maya forgot how to speak. All she could do was smile, overwhelmed by the love and support surrounding her. After the initial excitement died down, the group decided to keep the celebration going outside the gym. They headed to a nearby diner, cramming into booths and ordering plates of fries, burgers, and milkshakes. Laughter filled the air as stories were shared and memories relived. Someone brought up the infamous Jake match, prompting a round of teasing and good-natured ribbing. Jake himself joined in, laughing along with everyone else. Sitting there, surrounded by people who had become like family, Maya reflected on how far she'd come. When she first walked into the gym, she never imagined she'd end up here, celebrating milestones, inspiring others, and feeling so deeply connected to a community. Back then, she'd simply wanted to challenge herself physically and mentally. Now she realized that jiu-jitsu had given her so much more than strength. It had given her purpose. Late into the night, as dessert plates were cleared away and conversations began to wind down, Coach Malone raised his glass one last time. "To Maya," he said, his voice steady but full of pride, "for reminding us that greatness isn't defined by titles or belts, it's defined by character. You've changed, all of us for the better, and we're lucky to have you here." Everyone clinked their glasses together, echoing his sentiment. Maya felt a lump rise in her throat, unable to find the right words to express her gratitude. So instead, she simply smiled, letting the moment speak for itself. In the days that followed, Maya carried her new blue belt with pride. It wasn't just a symbol of achievement. It was a reminder of the lessons she'd learned along the way. Jiu-jitsu had taught her to embrace failure, push through fear, and trust in her ability to adapt. These lessons spilled over into other areas of her life too. At work, she tackled projects with renewed confidence. In her personal relationships, she approached conflicts with patience and understanding. And whenever doubt crept in, she reminded herself of the mantra that had carried her this far: "We'll see." One afternoon, while helping Coach Malone organize equipment after class, he struck up a conversation. "So, what's next for you?" he asked casually, tossing a rolled-up mat onto a shelf. Maya shrugged, tying her hair back into a ponytail. "I don't know yet. Keep training, I guess. Maybe compete again someday. Why?" Coach Malone leaned against the wall, folding his arms. "Because you've got potential, not just as a fighter, but as a leader. Have you ever thought about teaching?" Teaching? The idea caught Maya off guard. She had always seen herself as a student, someone still learning the ropes. The thought of standing in front of a class, guiding others, seemed daunting. Yet, as she considered it, she realized how much she enjoyed helping newer students. Watching them grow, overcome obstacles, and gain confidence brought her immense satisfaction. "Maybe," she said finally, a thoughtful smile spreading across her face. "It's not something I've thought about seriously, but yeah, maybe." Coach Malone nodded approvingly. Well, when you're ready, let me know. I think you'd be great at it. Weeks later, Maya found herself assisting Coach Malone during beginner sessions. At first, she stuck to the sidelines, offering tips and demonstrating techniques when needed. But gradually, she grew more comfortable taking the lead, explaining moves in her own words and sharing insights from her experiences. To her surprise, the students responded well. They respected her, trusted her advice, and appreciated her calm, patient demeanor. Seeing her step into this role filled Coach Malone with pride. He often stood back, observing quietly as Maya guided the class, pointing out adjustments or corrections when necessary. "You're a natural," he told her one evening after practice. "Keep this up, and you'll be running your own gym someday." Maya laughed, brushing off the compliment. "Let's not get ahead of ourselves," she joked. Still, deep down, the idea planted a seed of possibility. Who knew where this journey might take her? As Maya left the gym that night, her blue belt tied securely around her waist, she paused for a moment to look up at the stars. Life had taken her places she never expected, introducing her to people who challenged and inspired her in equal measure. Through jiu-jitsu, she had discovered strength she didn't know she possessed, and shown others that they were capable of more than they believed. She thought back to her very first day at the gym, when she had walked in unsure of herself, carrying nothing but determination. 14 seconds had changed everything that night, not just for her but for everyone around her. And now, as she stepped into this next chapter of her journey, she knew one thing for certain: the best was yet to come.